But it's the only way you're ever gonna learn. You look back and it's all in the past. I'm dwelling on the thoughts I cannot say to you. If I don't say the words, then maybe it's not true. And it feels alright.
Good evening. Welcome to NUFC Matters. It's a live show. It's the professionals, and it's me, Stu, and Mitch joining you for an hour to talk about Newcastle United. Wow, just another weekend where we're talking about a win, talking about Champions League, talking about finishing the first part of the season, going into the World Cup on a real high. And Stephen Kennedy got in very early with this. Eddie Howe for Prime Minister. He's got enough on his hands, Stephen. He's got enough on his hands with our club. But Stu, 1-0, a comfortable 1-0. And I felt that was really like it was a revenge mission after what, a game we dominated at Stamford Bridge and came away with a 1-0 defeat, a heartbreaking 1-0 defeat last season. That felt like a little bit of revenge. And I thought we were every inch the better team yesterday.
Absolutely, but I'm going to have to start with saying good evening from the Premier League places, aren't I?
Yeah, the Champions League. Champions
League places. I was thinking today, and there's been so many comparisons between this season, not the team, but this season and the first season we got promoted with the Entertainers. And I was racking my brains for the differences, but I think you've just nailed it there. The main difference is you don't feel stressed or worried that this team's going to concede. Whereas with the Entertainers, you knew they would score, so it was different. But this team's capable of scoring and being tight at the back as well. And I'd also like to mention, and I'll say this, I'm sure I'll get a few Viz references, but I want to mention Big Dan Burns' huge tackle. It's immense. It was immense, wasn't it? It's very impressive. But being serious though, the timing at the end, that had to be spot on. And it was just after Longstaff tried to cut someone in half, wasn't it? And he had to get it exactly right, and he did. And for a defender, for those people who played in defence before, that's like scoring a goal. Because if he had got that wrong, that could have been a sending off. It would have been a free kick on the edge of the box, and he got it absolutely bob on. And it, to me, it epitomised the team, the willingness to fight for each other, the way the battle, but they do it with guile as well. It's not just brawn. They've got the skill to compete with the very best. And it's not even a roller coaster right now, is it? It's just like one of those bungee jumps that's only going one way. And it's brilliant to watch. The atmosphere for the second half was amazing. You could hear that through the TV, you just want to be there. We were saying that before, just before we come on. These are the games that you just think, I wish I was there. And I really wish I was there for that.
Yeah, you're nodding your head, Mitch. It was a great occasion, great atmosphere. And, somebody just said there, inside and outside the ground, it was great. The town was chocker last night. And it's probably one of those nights that make you feel homesick, Mitch.
Yeah, and it was bouncing over here. I mean, the Brooklyn Bar, where we meet, have a look at some of the videos just in the run-up to the game and afterwards was just as nuts. And so that atmosphere transferred, 4,500 men through the telly. Unbelievable, really. But we didn't just outplay them. We didn't just outwit them. And we didn't just outfight them. We rattled them. And I think that's another thing that we're not necessarily talking about all the time. Is that I've referred to it as shithousery in the past. We've got that little bit of nastiness in there when we need it. And yesterday that came to the fore. Some of those younger Chelsea players couldn't handle it. And once you've got players losing their cool, and once you've got players not really concentrating on the game of football, you've got the game won. And I've also said before, like you touched on, I don't think I've ever felt so comfortable with us at 1-0 up in any game. We just look in control. And the more it goes on, I think the more we're allowed to start to believe that there's a lot better and bigger things to come.
Yeah, 100%, mate. I definitely agree. I'm going to ask you as well, while we're on with you, Mitch, about Saudi Airlines, because Keith Moore's asking in the chat, Is there any truth with Saudi Airlines? I mean, I had the photograph shoot over here on the Millennium Bridge and elsewhere in town. Has anything come out about that, or is it potentially a new sponsor?
Nothing specifically that I've heard. I mean, there's obviously something in it. They're doing photo shoots, and interestingly, with the timing of everything, they're not being subtle and they're not being quiet about it. They're quite happy to let these things get bounce around. So I think an interesting move. I think again, it tastes the things to come, and it further cements these relationships that they're going to be using in the region. As part of making things work for FFP, and that's what we've said all along. That a lot of these things, okay, Saudi in particular, one of the things we have heard in the past is that they're interested in making Newcastle a European hub. Now, if that was to happen, that's another one of those moves that doesn't just benefit Newcastle United; it benefits the region as a whole. And I think that in itself could be a significant move, and we're maybe seeing the early shoots of that. Well, my understanding was there was talk about extending the runway at Newcastle, so Emirates could land the big 380s there. Well, if Saudi want to come along and do something like that, that's going to put interest and pressure on Emirates just as they ramp back up to 7 flights a week into Newcastle. And so, again, that's healthy competition. It makes the airport more significant. It makes the region tick. Don't underestimate these kind of things. So there's all sorts that could be happening, and that certainly are happening because, like I said, they're not being subtle or quiet about it. They're quite happy to let those pictures bounce around. And so let's just sit tight and enjoy the ride in that respect as well.
Yeah, but it was interesting to see, wasn't it, Stu? Just the photographs that went wild on social media. We've got to get used to that. Yeah,
well, Saudi Airlines are really one of the premium airlines over here as well. I fly with them regularly, as you know, to Riyadh, and I'm very, very impressed with them. And to me, they would be a perfect sponsor, or not the main sponsor, but perfect partners to Newcastle. If you take the airline puns with taking off and stuff like that, and as Mitch touched on there, you've got Emirates coming into Newcastle more often again. Saudi, if they do sponsor us, of course, they're going to be coming more often into Newcastle. That benefits the region, like the hotels, restaurants, bars even, it's going to bring more money into Newcastle and the surrounding areas. And it can only be a good thing, and this is a thing we've said even pre-takeover. It's if and when it happened, and it has happened, the region as a whole will benefit, and it's fabulous to watch. And what was really good as well, that went under the radar yesterday. I know you were at the game, so you would have seen it firsthand. But the STC, the Saudi Telecommunications Company, their advertising hoardings were up there as well. And these are the people that had sponsored Man United for 12 years and give them a lot of money. And let's see what happens. Let's see if there's any fury about that, because they're sponsoring Little Newcastle now. But they're putting the money in. And it's something we talked about last week. These companies will be proud to be associated with Newcastle United. In a team that is watched globally, and a team that everyone can see is becoming the future. And they don't play in a style that's boring. They don't play, like get 1-0 and sit back. Even yesterday, they were still trying to get the second goal, but in a conservative, measured, professional way. And if you've got companies like Saudi, and you've got companies like STC, and we've mentioned Aston Martin, yes, they all fall under the umbrella of PIF. But so do many companies. It could be Twitter. It could be so many different companies that PAF have got their fingers in, and that's the beauty of this. These companies want to be associated. Now, even if they only have like a 5% or a 60% share, it makes no difference. They want to impress their paymasters, and if you're associated with a good brand, this is simple marketing. If you're associated with a good brand, it reflects better on you. And Newcastle is a good brand. They've got a clean living manager. We couldn't ask for a better manager. who doesn't try and cause controversy. He plays everything down. He's very, very humble in his press conferences and his sound bites. And for those who have listened to his podcast last week, it was excellent. You know, and it just shows the thought that he puts into his job into making our team better. And I don't think any Newcastle fan complain about it. We're in safe hands, we're in good hands, and we just got to sit back and let them do their job. We've got the easy part. We go and watch, and as we were just talking about, yeah, you go and watch and you're not even that stressed when you're 1-0 down against someone who won the European Cup 18 months ago. They didn't look like scoring. And I think if you looked at the amount of chances they had and Aston Villa had in the last home game, you can count on one hand how many shots they've had. And that's testament to our defence, and that's testament to our players, not just the defence, the midfielders, the Chris Wood, attacking or defending from the front. It's a testament to every single person buying the Eddie Howe's philosophy. And I don't think there's a club in Britain, even Europe, that have the feel-good factor that we've got at the moment. And a long way to continue.
Could you give a man of the match yesterday, Stu? Because I couldn't. I'd give it the whole team.
The same. Absolutely, everyone. I think it would be unfair on 10 or 12 other people if you give one person out and said that person was man of the match. I think each of them played their parts. You can't give everyone 10 out of 10 because that would be faultless. You know, everyone made errors, but the beauty of this team is when they make errors, the colleagues rally around them and help them out. I mean, even the linchpin of this renaissance that Newcastle's going through, Bruno, he overhit a couple of passes in the final third in the first half, and you could see he was more angry with himself than anyone else. But again, it was just give him the ball again, let him get the error out of his system, then give him a simple pass, make space for him, and ease them back into the game. Each and every player. I mean, Trippier's leadership is I don't think we've had a captain like that unless we go back to Kilcline. It's amazing. Even at the very end, he was still coaching players, and you talk about how good the captains are. I thought Lascelles did a fantastic job on the touchline, didn't he? He was getting involved, but at the same time, it's one of my pet hates. I know Mitch's dad, George, hates the throw-ins, how they're not taken correctly, but one of mine is how they steal yards. Like it's 5 yards, 10 yards, 20 yards, and it's all to gain an advantage, but it's blatant gamesmanship, and it's cheating. So all Lascelles done is he stood his ground. The throw-in should have been took 10 yards back. But what it did do, it ran the clock down. And he can take a booking because he's not getting much game time anyway. So you can't give anyone man the match. If you have to give someone it, you've got to give it to Eddie Howe.
Yeah, well said. Mitch, Chris Wood getting a mention in dispatches here by Ian Moore. You can say what you want about Wood. He isn't everyone's first choice up front, but when he starts, we've got a very good win percentage. And I couldn't agree more, Ian. You know me, I've been flying the flag for Chris Wood. Since he came to the club. He's not a prolific goal scorer. He's doing a job, which is hard. But yeah, I mean, even he yesterday got credited by everybody that I spoke to. People said he had a great game.
Brings something different to the table and brings a little nasty streak into the team that goes a little bit unseen sometimes. But I'm telling you now, I wouldn't like to have a disagreement and meet him in a dark alley for 5 minutes. That's for bloody sure. And so, you know, all these different strings to the bow that everybody bring in, all these different characteristics and things that bring to the table when you talk about the mix in Newcastle United and the squad. And I thought he grafted hard yesterday. He made it uncomfortable for their three centre-backs. Very uncomfortable. And by the time Wilson came on, some of them were knackered. And so there's Wilson coming on to bring something different again in his own version of Gale and the work rate, and they've already done a big shift. But for me, while I agree with you, I think it's a little unfair maybe to name a single person out. I would say Joe Willock, just simply because the graft he's put in this first half of the season has been phenomenal. And in the last couple of games, he's got his reward with goals. And what a goal. That finish, every time I look at it, it gets better. And to do that at pace, with control, curl it into the net. I think just for that alone, I would probably just nudge it to Willock. But, you know, again, what an effort, and it's fantastic to see.
Yeah, no, it really, really is. Lots of suggestions coming in. Trippier getting a mention as usual. Let's take a few of your questions in the chat. Tom Dixon says, "What's your thoughts on Joe Willock? It was a great finish yesterday by him, and it's interesting. We've seen we've seen the revelation of Joe Linton in Newcastle United's team, Stu, but we've now seen Miguel Almiron progress and start hitting the back of the net. Is the second half of the season going to be Joe Willock's time to shine?
It could quite possibly be. I mean, his goal yesterday, it was a natural finish. He didn't have time to think about it. And I think that's what's helped him. You know, it was just like, there's the opportunity. The confidence is high. This is where I'm going to put it. And it was a split-second decision. Whereas sometimes if they get time to think about it, they can, you know, overthink it. And it was just a natural footballer's finish. And it was sublime, wasn't it? It was brilliant how he just tucked it away. As if he took it off Miggy, didn't he? So will he develop? Of course, they're all developing. Every single player has advanced and enhanced their career. If you look at even Fabian Schär's interview after the game, you know, he actually seemed sad he was going to the World Cup. You know, he's never had it. He said he's never been involved in a team like it, and you know, the fact that he's going to represent his country in the World Cup, he's like, yeah, but we'll be back soon, and we're going to continue this. And it's just amazing to see from all of them. Not one of those players in the starting 11 want to give the shirt up. If you look at Botman, he should have went off when he first went down, but he's like thinking, I'm not losing my place in this team. And he got up and he carried on, and eventually they had to take him off. But this team spirit is going to take us a long, long way, and it's going to take us higher than most of us thought at the start of the season. And probably most of what the owners thought as well. But it's just one of those where you have to just keep enjoying it. And, you know, you start looking at the fixtures ahead now and you think, when are we going to get beat? When we play like this, with this effort and this game plan and the amount of attention and detail they've got, you know, can they get beat? Because you talk about Arsenal being 5 points clear, which they are, and you think, well, great, that's a great position to be in. I remember a team a few years back now, 12 points clear, and it doesn't always work out the way you want it to work out. So first up, we've got Leicester away, then we've got Leeds at home, then Arsenal away. That could be a massive game for us. That could be a proper statement attempt. We've played 5 of the dirty 6 already, and we've outfought most of them. We've outplayed most of them, and we've outperformed most of them, and we've took points of all them bar one. And we don't need to go over bad ground with the decisions regarding that game. But if we could start the season again, I think this team now has got the serious know-how of how to see games out. And I think that would have helped us beat Man City. So again, we're growing as a team, but they're growing together. And well, yes, we'll bring people in, but whose place they're going to get? You know, we've all been saying it should be left back, it should be Longstaff's position, it should be Willock's position. But none of them have done anything to warrant their position being taken off them, up their place, the team being taken off them. And that showed yesterday when they ended up taking, I think it was Willock that come off at the end, but they put Murphy on instead of VSM because they needed someone who was going to track back and cover it. They needed to protect the goal. So now you've got world-class players who have carried us for a couple of seasons in ASM, is struggling to get back in that team against what you could probably call more workman-like players, and that can only be good for us. Let's say they bring in these 1 or 2 quality signings in January, where they're going to go, because everyone's just raising their game, and they're going to have to play so hard to get into this team, which bodes well for us as fans. The team really should be finishing in the Champions League if they carry on the same way.
Joe Willock, Neil, your take on him yesterday?
Well, like I said, for me, he just nudges man of the match, and I thought his finish was class. The work and effort he's put in this first part of the season, just outstanding, and he's now getting his rewards. It's funny, he came and he banged a load of goals in, and then he's added more to the game. He's definitely a better player than the one we first had. But now the all-round game's coming together, and the goals have come back, and the confidence is there. And I think like Miggy Almiron and a couple of others, when the confidence is up, they suddenly can do anything because they believe they can. And I think that's the best thing to see in some of these players. They're now starting to just enjoy the game and do things on instinct. It's such a delight to watch, and everything about Newcastle United at the minute feels good and feels positive in a way it's not felt for such a long time, and that's, you know, pervading not just through the city and the community, but it's going worldwide, and people are noticing it now. People are really starting to take notice of this silly little club in the northeast of England, and it's fantastic.
It is, yeah. Lots of people very happy, expats and people who live a little bit closer to home, all delighted tonight. Wonderful result. Do you think the break has come at the wrong time for us, Stu? Asks Mozza.
Well, we knew the break was coming, so, but the way the team's playing, you can argue yes, but you could also argue it'll give them a rest because they're covering more ground than I think any other team, man for man. And thankfully, at the moment, this won't happen at the next World Cup or the next Euros. We don't have as many players as our rivals for the European positions that will be missing. So they can get a rest. They will get a pre-season. And I just think Eddie Howe's prepared for it. He's already talked about a mini pre-season. There's a game going on in Riyadh in a few weeks' time. Both Mitch and myself will be there for that. They've already arranged a friendly against the Spanish team. So they'll hit the ground running, and I don't think we could be in better hands. I'm sure we're all very comfortable knowing that Eddie Howe will do his homework. He'll do his, everything will be researched properly, everything will be planned properly, and the team will be ready for the League Cup game and also for the first game against Leicester. Whoever's playing, and then it just shows you we can take anyone out of that team now, and we'll still play as a team. Everyone knows the role.
Yeah. What's your thoughts on that, Mitch?
Well, I see both sides of the argument, but my feeling is that actually to give us some more time for the players not going to the World Cup to have some rest, to get people back from injury and make sure they're fully fit before we throw them into the mix again fully. And that helps everybody because some of the players that have been missing for a good chunk of that first part of the season can now take the strain off of the rest of the squad and do some minutes and leave minutes in other people's legs. We've also got this concept that Eddie Howe's talked about having a mini pre-season to get everybody hitting the ground running again. We've also now got the next round of the League Cup as our first game to play, so I think that'll be, again, just helps with just get back into it, knocks the rust out. So I don't think there's a good or a bad time because the break's there for everybody. I do think it makes it a very unusual and unique situation. But who would you rather have in charge of planning that than Eddie Howe?
Yeah, 100%. Question from Tom says, how many points do you think we'll need to finish in the top 4?
I can answer that. One more than the team that finishes 5th.
Good answer. Good answer.
That's the easiest answer.
Mitch, really, it's still hard to believe we're talking like this, isn't it?
It is, and it's like when you set your points for safety, it really does, as Stu alludes to with that comment, depends on what the other people are doing around you. And so I've never really looked at what range of points gets into the top 4 every season, because for the last 14 years we've been mainly looking at what range of points gets you relegated. So it's not something I'm particularly au fait with in terms of numbers and stats. But all I will say is if we take the calendar year form forward and extrapolate that out, we're going to be nudging top 3, I think. And I can't believe I'm saying that with a degree of sincerity and not with my tongue stuck in my cheek. I'm trying to do it with a bit of humility, and not going, Jodie's expecting this and expecting that. No, we're not expecting out. We're expecting to just keep enjoying ourselves and the facts are speaking for themselves now. We don't have to do now. It's just point at the league table.
Exactly. Going into the transfer window a little bit, because it won't be long before it's open. Barry says rumours that we're doing serious work for Mudryk. Could he be the big name signing, Stu?
Yeah, he could be, because he's a quality player, and that's the market that we're in now, isn't it? So anyone who could potentially improve the first team, and this is something I've been quite consistent on. I believe the players that we do either sign or attempt to sign seriously in January and in the summer will be players that are capable of coming straight into the first 11. Now, whether they get straight into the first 11, I wouldn't think they would, because you see how Eddie Howe eventually phases players in. He did it with Bruno as well. The only one who I think he's signed and put straight in, two, has been the goalkeeper, Nick Pope, and also Trippier, whenever the fit he's played them. And so whoever comes in, they're going to have to get to understand the ethos of this club. And it's the pride, isn't it? You swell with pride of how the team is. And Mitch was talking about Chris Wood there. He wouldn't like to meet him in a dark alley. The lad apparently he's nails. He's proper hard, or as hard as goat shins, is it that Joe Allen says? He's really, really tough. But you imagine Chelsea were like meek as a lamb all game, and then at the end, when they realised they got beat, they started like acting big. They even had one of the coaches come on, or physios, whatever, trying to give it large. But you know what? We're not going to back down. And I could hear the roar from the Leazes end when it all went off, and it just took us back so many years. It's like, everyone's getting into it. But if you're up against a team who's got someone like Chris Wood, Dan Burn, Joe Linton, Botman, Lascelles in it, you're daft if you think you're going to beat these physically. And this is what we've got. We've got the brawns, we've got the brains, we've got the guile, we've got everything. And I do know, and I can't tell you how I do know, but that Havertz wasn't, let's say, welcomed when he got off the pitch, but he dropped his arse, and they were calling him hemorrhoid, not Havertz. So, or Cry Havertz is probably the best way to call him instead of Kai. But it's a togetherness that makes this team stronger. And if anyone doesn't want to be part of it, I'm sure they'll be alienated, because this team, I don't think there's as many superlatives as we can keep mentioning. How close they are, and what I think they're now also believing what they can achieve together. It's been put to them, look, if you do this, but the proof's now in the pudding. And they're taking the field, they're oozing with confidence. And I know Miggy's been getting all the headlines for it, but now he's a danger. So he gets more marked, which allows people like Willock to flourish, and for Longstaff to flourish. And getting back to Joe Willock, what I wanted to say earlier, his ball carrying skills is equal to anyone in that league. I think only De Bruyne, you could say, would be better, who's in midfield, who gets the ball and drives forward. He does it fantastically, and no defender likes someone running at you with pace. And when you're running backwards, it's very, very hard to do. And thankfully now he's getting the credit for it, but it sometimes goes unseen, that type of work, because it's normally the class finish or the great cross that gets all the praise. But he carries that ball 3 or 4 times a game, 40 yards up the pitch, and it's great to watch. Everyone has a role in the playing to their strengths.
Yeah, 100%. Jay Curtin put that in the chat. If the season started when Eddie Howe first came in, we would have finished 5th last season on around 60 points. That might help with a question about how many points we need for Europe. Yeah, it's a good way of looking at it. What's your take, Mitch?
Sorry?
What's your take on on the last question?
Just Stu pretty much summed it up. I've just been sitting and enjoying listening, to be
fair. We'll go to this question from David, and he says, looking ahead, I'll give you first bat on this one, Mitch. He says, do you chaps think that Jason Tindall will want to get back into management? He says, I'm sure Jason's loving every second of this, but one day he might fancy a big challenge.
And Eddie Howe's role is to build a back room whereby he can have succession and has an idea who he wants in when, for me. And so If Tyndall wanted to go it alone, he's got every right to, as somebody who's working as a manager. But he looks so bloody happy at the minute. Like everybody at Newcastle United, everybody looks so settled and happy. And so why, at the minute, I guess, why would he? Why would he want to? That said, you know, if the right opportunity came for him, I'm sure he'd be interested to talk about, because doesn't everybody with managerial aspirations want to captain their own ship eventually? But I think right now, everybody seems so set and so happy. I couldn't see him wanting to be away quick anywhere soon, unless it was something really special, or personally, you know, like, you know, a personal thing, like it's his boyhood team or what have you comes along, then that might turn his head. But you know, I think Howe's built such a strong backroom staff as well. Remember that I can't see anybody wanting to be away from that anytime soon.
No, Stu, I can't see him leaving either. I think he's got a job to do. He's bought into the project, and him and Eddie Howe, as Blue Rhythm Boy said, you know, they work in tandem together. And you know, as close as he can be to being a manager he needs at the moment. Says Blue Rhythm Boy. Colin Wilson says, I don't think for 1 minute Jason would want to leave. Not 1 minute. Why would he?
No, you had the Keegan and McDermott, and you had before that there was Clough and Taylor. You know, some people are comfortable, actually more comfortable in the number 2 role because there isn't as much exposure or pressure on them, but they play a massive role being the buffer between the manager and the players. And you can tell that he's very good at it. And he was, I think, was he at Sheffield United when Eddie Howe was offered the job? And he said he was part of the deal. I need him with me. And it just shows how much Eddie Howe relies on him. But it's the trust they've got together. I don't think he'd want to leave them. And from what we're creating at the moment, who would want to get off this roller coaster anyway? You know, it would be pure madness to even suggest someone would say, right, I'm leaving, I want to run my own place. They're going to create history here. And we all want to fast forward the clock until it happens. But I think we all have now, with the degree of confidence rather than certainty, we will be winning something in the not too near distant future. And it won't just be one trophy. I think there'll be an accumulation of trophies as well. But before speaking to Mitch, I need to say happy birthday to the Heed, who was out celebrating with his all last night, and he's blaming John Justice Allen for his hangover this morning. And he's off an age where he's getting too old now to be drinking as much as he did last night. But love you, Mr. Gary. Have a great day tomorrow. And serves you right for last night because I wasn't there.
Yeah, happy birthday, Heed. It's a big one for him. And no John Justice Allen in the chat, you'll notice. It's not big and it's not clever drinking shots, John. That's the message. When you watch this back and he tried as he may to get me to have one, he failed miserably. So yes, my head was banging, has to be said this morning, but not as bad as his would have been. I guess he's written today off. This comment, sorry, I can't pronounce Arabic, so I'm not sure what the name is, but he says, I have not seen a team that was competing for relegation to a rival team in the league in just 1 year. Think of Leicester. Leicester did it. They were going down. Nigel Pearson kept them up with an amazing run of games, and then Ranieri came in and did the business. So, you know, it can happen. And Gibbo last night came to the Dog and Parrot instead of Malcolm, who was on his way to Carlisle for a birthday celebration. And he mentioned it last night. He said, I think Newcastle are going to do a Leicester. And that was a big thing for an esteemed journalist like Gibbo to come out with. So, yeah, we'll wait and see what happens in the second part of the season. And Colin Wilson says that the tide is turning amongst pundits. It certainly is. Neil Calvert, good evening. He says, do you honestly believe Eddie's stance on not knowing what we're going to do on transfers in January? Just got back in the car when his interview came on 5 Live. Well, it's the second time I've heard him say it, Neil. I've got to be honest. You said it in the press conference a couple of weeks ago. But we mentioned this, didn't we, Stu? We talked about this. We said he's not going to give away his game plan, is he?
No, I don't want to steal anything of Jamie Neal because he's a big lad as well, but he's lying. Absolutely certain he knows. Absolutely certain he knows who he's got here marked. But you're right, he's not going to sit in the press yes after him, and him, because first of all, it alerts other teams, but it's out of respect as well. You know, you don't start doing that to players. I'm sure the agents are scurrying behind the scenes, and the players who are earmarked are probably already aware of it anyway. But they conduct themselves professionally, and to me, it reflects on how the owners, how the Saudi business owners conduct themselves as well, like business-wise. It's done respectfully, and like we mentioned just before there, Eddie Howe is probably the most respectful manager in the league. Even when he's got a right to be tearing strips off the wallpaper and stuff like that, he doesn't. He might be inside, but he always projects himself in a calm, cool, calculated manner. And it just makes us even more proud, doesn't it? The only sad thing about this World Cup is there's going to be no more press conferences from him for the next 4 weeks, 5 weeks, whatever. You know, we actually look forward to these press conferences. So yeah, when he says, yeah, we'll look at it, he's just batting the question away politely. No, he doesn't want to get engrossed into like question time about something like that and names start flying about. So it's the easiest thing in the world to say is I'm focused on this coming game. That's what the press conference is about, and we'll look at it in the window because he knows he's not going to be having the press in his face every Friday during the window. So I take from that they have a real idea of who they're going to get, and they hope once we get back into the swing of things, the deals behind the scenes will all be just about done, ready to be mentioned in January. I think they're going to move fast now. And any person or any player who had doubts about should they come to Newcastle, look at where we are now. You know what I mean? And look, we're in the ascendancy. Some of these teams who have spent more money than us in the summer because we've just used blood money, haven't we? And we've just bought ourselves into this position. There's a lot of teams who have spent a lot more money than Newcastle United. And even if the argument says, but look what you spent in January, it's like, well, should we apologise for trying to better ourselves? If you want to go back 2 windows, go back 10 windows, and then let's see who spent the most. But everyone had the same chance to spend money in the summer. We spent 120 million or thereabouts. I think I worked out there was 7 teams more that spent more than us in the summer. And there's not 7 teams above us. So somewhere along the line, Eddie Howe and his management team and the players, you're going to give the players credit as well. All deserve the utmost credit. And I think the hardest role Eddie Howe's got now is keeping their feet in the ground, because at the moment they've won a lot of new admirers, but they haven't achieved anything yet. That's to come, and that's what they've got to keep them focused on. The main goal is still 5-6 months away, and I don't think we can ask for a better manager to be portraying that message to them.
Yeah, I mean, it's look, for me, I think ultimately Eddie Howe will keep his cards close to his chest, Mitch, and he did say that ultimately we've got to bring the right person in, the right players in. He doesn't want to lose that kind of connection in the dressing room, does he? So he'll play his cards close to his chest on this.
I would be amazed if the groundwork for January isn't already done and dusted, and barring something surprising popping out of the World Cup, or someone surprising popping out during the World Cup, that's about it. And Ashworth's already looking at summer. That's the way I would interpret it all. And yeah, why would he give his bloody plans away? Of course, it's best to be coy. You can't just sort of say, yeah, we're going to go after this one, and I've got 252 million to spend on this, and it's ridiculous. It's not. No manager's ever going to come out with that. But it is interesting to see him play with them a little bit, and I think he handles himself so well in many different ways, and you're right about them wanting to get the right people, and I think we're now, the way the squad's playing, we can afford to be very choosy. We've actually got the ability to say, doesn't quite tick all the boxes. So, okay, let's move on. Let's find the one that does. And that's what getting the squad the way it is allows them the freedom to do. And so I think it's going to be, as I say, I think barring somebody having a spectacular World Cup and turning everybody's heads, I think the January groundwork's already done and know what they would like to do, and they've got their options A, B, C, D, whatever lined up, and ducks are already in a row.
Graham Townsley's watching on LinkedIn. He says a lot of social media chat about best ever Newcastle team, best ever player or midfielder. Can we stop trying to rewrite history and just enjoy the ride? I read the other day that Eddie is the best ever manager, better than KK, etc. He says, let's give Eddie time to build his legacy and also not disrespect Keegan. He took us from the bottom of the now championship to third in the Premier League within 2.5 seasons. Let's not rewrite and enjoy the ride. Good point, Stu. You know what I mean? And Eddie Howe would probably agree with that, I guess.
Yeah, I think we've all been advocates of that, and I don't think I've come across a Newcastle fan who's said negative things about Keegan. But this season, to me, I know we weren't relegated last year, but it's very reminiscent of our first season promoted under Keegan, where we come in with lower expectations, and it was more of a free hit season. It was, let's see how good we are. But Keegan believed we were better than what we were, and he made the players believe that. And Eddie Howe's mirroring that quite a lot. The way he's improved the players, and he's pushed the barriers, he's raised the ceiling. For all the metaphors that come out. But Eddie Howe's legacy is not written; he's only just started, and this is the beauty of it. And if he can replicate what Keegan did and finish third in his first season, it didn't take him 2.5 years. It was his first season in the Premier League because he had half the season, didn't he, keeping us up. Then we walked the first division as it was then. Or was it? Yeah, it was. And then we got into the Premier League. We finished third. And if we do the same again this season, I don't see us falling fifth or sixth or a decline. And if we do challenge for the league, and I would be gobsmacked if Eddie Howe had a team that was 12 points clear and lost the league. That was naivety. That was us as a fan base being too excited and too nervous, and that again reflects on the team. But you and 50,000 others are sitting there, and I was watching it last night, and I told everyone who was listening and those who even weren't listening that this team can be as good as it wants to be, and we're getting the images that they want to be very, very good. So comparing Eddie Howe to Keegan, I think Eddie Howe would take that as a huge compliment at the moment. But he has the potential, and he's also got the backing to surpass whatever Keegan did. But when he does, I don't think any Newcastle fan of a certain age will ever see that as a detriment to Kevin Keegan. I think he reinvigorated this club, this region. And to me, he should have a statue up there already. He should have a stand named after him or something like that. But Eddie Howe, I think he's going to get a statue, a living statue, and he's going to get one pretty quickly if he carries on the way he's going.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? I mean, there is a lot of comparisons, Mitch, between, past and present. And, if he wins something, quite clearly, he is going to be, held in such high esteem.
Look, we've had this discussion on a couple of the shows about comparing across eras, and it's really, really, really very difficult. And I don't think anybody's trying to rewrite history. Certainly not from my point of view, from what I see with everyone and listen to, is that they're not sort of decrying what Keegan did, but I think everybody's truly amazed still at the job that Eddie Howe's doing. It's a phenomenal job. He still hasn't had enough praise generally for what he did last season, that turnaround. You'll not see another team turned around like that in a long, 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 long time. And so that deserves the credit it's worth. And any manager who's the first manager to do something spectacular in Newcastle United, put a bit of silverware in the cupboard, was always going to be hailed, even if that had been bloody Steve Bruce in a lucky League Cup win. I think we've been so starved of success, but I think we're approaching this season and enjoying this ride. Like Stu said, we came into it with lower expectations. I don't think any of us could have thought would be bloody in the noses of everybody left, right and centre the way we have this season. Don't think anybody could have predicted that. And we're absolutely loving it. And so I think also, yes, let's not rewrite history, but let's enjoy the moment too. Let's keep enjoying that moment and see what the second half of the season brings.
Yeah, fantastic, isn't it? Just sit back and enjoy the ride. Steve Corbett, again, with something talked about on this show on a few occasions. What if England come knocking for Howe, best English manager by a mile? Will he turn down such a prestigious position? He was asked about it, Steve, in his press conference a few weeks ago, and he said he would be honoured, he'd be flattered, but at the moment, it's not something that he is looking at. He's got a job to do at Newcastle. Barry asks, will we play a stronger side in the next cup game, or do you think that the fringe players will get another chance? First game in ages where I felt we were poor until the big guns came on. It's an interesting one because, you've got to find the balance between, the league position and the cup position. We've already said we're progressing at quite a quick rate, quicker than we probably imagined. And the way that, the league is falling into place. I mean, we're 9 points clear of 7th at the minute because Brighton lost today. Manchester United, of course, sneaked a win in Fergie time. But 9 points clear of 7th place gives us a hell of a chance. But I think he will play the fringe players, Stu. I think he will give the likes of Elliot Anderson. Chris Wood, of course, started yesterday, but, you would say that he was more, second to Wilson, in the striker stakes. He probably will give people a run out again in that game, even though it's the quarterfinal.
Yeah, but what do you mean know about fringes? So,
exactly. Very, very true.
I believe, have I mentioned I'm going to the game in Riyadh and Mitch is going with us?
Yeah,
yes. Good. I believe that the team that starts then will be pretty close to the team that starts in the League Cup. I don't see any of the World Cup players being played in that game because it's when is it, the 19th of December or something like that, before the week before the season starts again. So I think that would give an indication. But again, I mentioned before, we don't have as many players going to the World Cup as we have, and we do have cover in those positions. And I think with that team, we should have enough to take Bournemouth. But there's one thing I want added before when we're talking about not giving Eddie Howe enough praise. And there was a comment that came on about other teams spending money to catch us. How mental is that? That other teams like the Man Uniteds and Liverpools and Chelsea's are going to have to spend more money to catch Newcastle. Now, considering Spurs spent 150 million in the summer, and Conte's crying he needs to spend more money, but he did that from a team that had qualified for the Champions League. Liverpool smashed their transfer record with a £90 million forward from the Champions League positions. Who else was there? Man City. Well, they actually made profit because they've got such a plethora. I use that word again. Plethora of quality players. They could sell players and bring people in. And the other one was Man United. They spent stupid money, and their spend is to try and protect their Champions League places. We spent less than them to try and even compete to get a European place. Yet we're the ones spending all the money. And it's great watching the fume of all of them. But the journalists now, we've got Chris Sutton calling us United, not Manchester United. United's calling us United. And he's doing it for effect. He's doing it for his clicks, for whatever reason. But it shows us in a light where we all been talking about. There's a lot of journalists have changed the tune because they will take the easy. It's not just journalists, but pundits, sports reporters, etc. They'll take the easy option. And sometimes it's best for us to just sit back. Like Mitch is now, always folded with a huge smile of content, and watch them all eat humble pie and eat the words. We are overachieving in every sense of the word, to the point now where we're actually, if you keep overachieving, it becomes the norm. We are moving the barrier higher and higher and higher, and every time that raise the bar, it's like watching the high jump at the Olympics. Every time they raise the bar, can you get over it? And this team keeps beating the target, and they keep getting over it. So where does the bar stop? For us, it's got to be when we win trophies consistently. So if they're having to spend crazy money to try and catch us, let them do it, because you can spend as much money as you want, but you need a team. And the team that we've got, the team that they play for each other, is something you can't buy. That has to be worked on behind the scenes, and we've got a head start on all of them. So let them spend.
Yeah, playing a weaker team in the cup, Mitch. Is given the chance for those players to have a run out. It's the only time they're going to get a game.
I think he'll play whoever impresses him most in his mini pre-season.
Yeah.
It's as simple as that. I think he'll assess it later pre-season. I think he'll assess it. I'm sure some of the lads will be given a little bit of a break who won't go into the World Cup. Who comes back still fit and not full of San Miguel? Who comes back still hungry and has the passion, and who's slacked off a little bit? It's those moments when they're left to their own devices that will show Eddie Howe a little bit more about what they're up for and what they're not. I think we'll have a fantastic opportunity in the League Cup now, the way the draw's fallen and the way the other ties have fallen. It genuinely is a real... I'm much more on the back of the results in the draw from the last round. I'm much more optimistic that it's a genuine, real opportunity for us to break a duck that needs to be done. And at the start of this second half of the season, why not chuck a stronger team in from the off? I would say, but like I say, I think Eddie Howe will do it on the basis of who's impressed him most once he's got everybody back and had some time with them. Yeah,
interesting question as well about a potential outgoing maybe. Does Maxi's style of play fit in with the current pattern? Says John, leading to the question that Ian said, which is Wilson Maximin still be a Newcastle player by the 1st of September 2023. Hasn't found it easy to get back in, has he, Stu? Maybe his time could be coming to an end. Who knows?
Well, I didn't think he'd be a Newcastle player at the 1st of September 2022. So I think a lot of it depends on him himself. I don't think anyone who watches him can see he hasn't got the talent, but it's whether he's got the application and desire to fit into what's required of that role. It's just the roles, the team is not built around him anymore, as it had been in the past. It's built around everything we've talked about this evening. It's built around hard work and everyone knowing the roles. But to me, I've been more impressed with him when he has come on. He's shown the willingness to release the ball quicker and things like that. But you don't want to take away his explosiveness, his unpredictability either. So it's a very fine line. It's a balancing act. But he may get sick of it himself. He may just say, "Look, I want to move now. I know I'm not going to get the regular football I want." And you never know what's behind the scenes. So he's a different character to the majority of the team, but that doesn't make him different to the point where he's alienated. It just means he needs to be managed differently as well. And to keep the Eddie Howe fan club growing, if anyone can manage him back into the team and make him feel wanted, it'll be him. But again, it's a two-way street. He's got to think, right, this is what I need to do. Am I willing to do it? The answer will be, I don't think he'll leave in January, for sure he won't. But if he's here by next September, to me, the only reason he will be is because he's played a star role. And he's in the team and he's creating the chances that we all know he can on a regular basis.
What's your thoughts, ASM? Will he stay or will he go, Mitch?
Like I said all along, it's all down to him. And I've seen signs in terms of how he is and hear things about the influence of one Kieran Trippier in particular on him, that he's somebody who could be ripe for change in terms of bringing all of the elements of him to the table. As Stu said, it's a fine line. If you take away that maverick in him, you don't have the same player. But at the same time, are there ways he can demonstrate that he's applying himself a bit better? And all these videos on Instagram of him charging up and down hills in Monaco, I'm quite sure there's fitness and rehab coaches wincing every time they see something like that. But at the same time, it's his way of saying, look, I'm trying my best to get to full fitness. I'm really putting this in. And to hear Trippier talk about somebody in the training pitch who's one of the hardest players he's ever had to deal with, I think that's a significant thing. And so it's about nurturing it and bringing it to the fore. And does he have the fight to regain his place? And how badly do you want it, mate? And I think he put that sort of thing to him. It boils down to him and him alone.
Yeah, no, it definitely does. A couple of questions come in on Twitter. One was just about the handball situation yesterday, why one was given and one wasn't. It's down to interpretation, I guess, Stu, isn't it, at the end of the day? The referee, and we got VAR. I mean, we're double covered.
I think if we're all biased, we all shout a penalty when that happened, but realistically, what's the lad meant to do? He can't just screw his arm off and then put it back on again once he's landed. You know, his arm's attached to his body, and he didn't put his hand out to stop the ball. It was natural. So as much as I wanted it to be a penalty for us, I could see why it wasn't. But again, you could also say if it had been the other way around, would it have been given against us? But even then, these decisions now seem to be balancing or evening themselves out a bit. So I don't think we should have a penalty. Longstaff's, again, you could see why it was given. It's just so happens that in the same game you've got one for, one against. And had we lost or drew the game because of those decisions, then, you know, I think my reaction and everyone else's would be a bit different. But I think we'll be a bit more magnanimous and say, right, we're quite all right with how it was. Because if that had been given against us as a penalty, I think the reaction would have been incredibly bad. So it wasn't a penalty for us against Chelsea. And I think Longstaff's was a 50-50, as he said, it's interpretation.
Yeah, it is down to interpretation, Mitch, isn't it, with penalties at the end of the day?
Goes back to that VAR's there to improve the decision making, and the decision making still inconsistent, not just with individuals in one game, but across games. I've just been sitting trying to think. I'm sure there was a penalty given in a Villa game and a penalty given in a Leeds game this season for an almost identical situation where a defender's sliding with his arm on the ground and the ball hits his arm. And there's not a lot the lad can do about it, but it was given. So when you have a lack of consistency across games, this is what pisses fans off. This is what gets so upset, is the lack of consistency. Really, the penalty that Dan Burn got given against him, he had his back to the ball and he didn't have a clue where the ball was, and the ball hits his arm. What's the difference there in the air versus across the ground, other than this concept of unnatural body shape, which again, that's also interpretation. And so I think that's the frustration with it all. You see them given, you see them don't. Some get given, some don't. And we've been saying that for years before there was any concept of VAR. So it kind of is what it is. As frustrating as it may be. Also very difficult when you get in the same game. Somebody maybe is interpreting slightly different between what happens in the box and what happens outside of the box. But then you could turn around and say we've had the benefit of that with the clash between Wilson and Loris when the goal was given because the keeper had decided to come charging out of his box like a lunatic and therefore was treated like a normal outfield player. So, yeah, I think it's one of those ones, if you get it, happy days, but you sort of cringe a little bit. But if you don't get it, you get a bit upset about it. But it is what it is.
It is. A question on Twitter. This will be the last one of the night. Kiki said, question for the professional show this evening. Which player that has left in the last few years would you have back that would fit in well with the current team? He said, I'd have Perez or Mourinho. I think the way we play would suit them both to the ground. My answer to that's simple. I wouldn't go back, Stu.
Well, when you say the last few years, it depends how many a few years is. To me, you could only think of someone like Beardsley or Shearer. You're going back a generation, aren't you? Mm-hmm. I don't think anyone that's Tiote, possibly. Tiote for me would be the player in that holding role to push Bruno forward, because Tiote to me was advanced for his time. He's very comfortable on the ball. He didn't lose it. You could give him under pressure. So him, I think he would have dovetailed perfectly well with Bruno in the middle. That's probably the only one I can think off the top of my head would be, and when we're talking about over 10 years now, aren't we? So if we have to go back, I would have to go back 10 years before I can think of someone that would be worthy of a place in that team.
Yeah, no going back, says Rachel. What do you think, Mitch?
Agree with you, Steve. I wouldn't be going back for anybody. I know I'm in a minority, but I don't get Mikel Mourinho, the whole
No,
Clamour
me
for
neither.
him to come back, you know. The way he left Dortmund to come to us, and then the way he left us to go on. There's something not right there from a mentality point of view, if you ask me. Never got it, never will. And I know I seem to be in the minority, but that's football, isn't it? It's just opinions at the end of the day. And I think you're right, you don't go backwards. Every time we've gone backwards, has it ever really worked out? I guess the only one I could think of was maybe Solano's second stint. Solano's second stint was probably more valuable than his first one in some ways. And that's it for me. I think I'd rather be excited by something new, someone who brings something we've never seen before to the table, and talking about moving to the next level. Because the players we've let go often been let go for a reason, and they certainly won't be the ones to take it to the next level.
No, definitely not. That hour has passed very quickly and very enjoyably. Thanks to all the moderators. Thanks to everybody for the questions in the chat, and those of you on Twitter. Thanks for the guys and girls watching on LinkedIn and Facebook as well. We will have a live show on Tuesday. Not sure what it is, and we are pre-recording the Amigos on Tuesday night, so you will have the Amigos on Friday. But there's also a show for every night of this week. So with the exception Tuesday, nothing else is live this week. It's all pre-recorded, so you can watch it at your own leisure. But for now, thanks to Stu. Thanks to Mitch. Enjoy the rest of your evening. Take care, lads.
Thanks, everyone. Cheers.
A big thanks to all our sponsors, starting with Skips and Bins, telephone 0800 25 45 25 3, email inquiries at skipsandbins.com, website skipsandbins.com, easy contract free and pay as you go waste collection. Thanks to Darren Baldwin Funerals. You can find them at 304 Old Durham Road on Gateshead. Telephone 0191 478 273 or email Darren at darrenbaldwinfunerals.co.uk or the website darrenbaldwinfunerals.co.uk. Thanks to Garden of Healing Dispensary, CBD hemp and cannabinoid specialists. Their website is thegohd.com. And thanks to 3 Property Investments, who specialise in sourcing investment properties for their clients who are looking to invest in the Northeast. They offer a full in-house service from sourcing the deals to managing the properties for you. They've done over 100 plus deals in the past 12 months for clients all over the UK. Give the guys a follow on Instagram, matty.patter_northeast property and phil.reed_northeast property, or email phil@3property.co.uk should you be interested in getting a good property deal. Thanks to Mr. Vicky's sauces, which are handmade in Cumbria. You can order them by going to the website, mrvickys.co.uk, or by calling 01768 210 102. Thanks to the guys at Blowhole Brewery. You can find them at blowholebrewery.co.uk. Got a vast range of beers. They're a new brewery company, and their cans are suitably addressed, like the Geordie Juice here, in the strips of Newcastle United from the 90s. Big thank you to Media Arts for all the help with the video side of things, and to qtechshop.co.uk, the makers of pool tables and snooker tables in Wallsend, Newcastle, and the guys who run our website. If you want to subscribe, then hit the subscription button. If you want to hit the likes, then hit the thumb up, and please share to your social media. We're also available as a podcast on iTunes and Spotify, and the rest goes up 24 hours after the show has finished. If you want to join, well, you can click join underneath the video and become a member for a small fee. If you want to pay the £25 fee and get a cup, a pen, a scarf, a membership card, and entry into the monthly draw, then go to the website, nufcmatters.com, and click membership, or use your smartphone on the QR code, which will take you straight there. We also give you a free car sticker. If you're a subscriber, simply email john@nufcmatters.com to claim your free car window sticker today. We also support the food bank on here. nufcfansfoodbank.co.uk is where you can find the matchday bucket and make a virtual donation 365 days of the year. We still do a lot of events in and around the region. If you want to see Super Mac pre-match and after-match, you can go to the Dog and Parrot in Newcastle and hear Malcolm give his views on the game and listen to what he has to say about his career as well. Always a great afternoon. Kids are welcome. Good food, good beer. And get yourself into Pumphrey's. You can always see John Anderson and John Gibson in there pre-match on the Cloth Market in Newcastle. A couple of events coming up in 2023, an evening with Peter Beardsley, Friday the 10th of February at St. Dom's Catholic Club. You can get the tickets direct from the venue. And Peter Beardsley is also at the Tyneside Irish Centre on Friday, February the 17th. Tickets available from Woucher for that one. Get yourself on the Woucher. Make a cracking Christmas present for any Newcastle fan. Also, an evening with Rob Lee, Lee Clark and John Beresford, Friday the 2nd of June 2023 at the Grand Hotel in Gosforth. Tickets for that are available from www.heelandtour.org.uk/events. And if you fancy a Christmas jumper, get the Bruno Christmas jumper from NUFC matters.com.